Snow slanted across West Valley City like thrown sand, needling windows and making the street lamps hiss. In the little Powell house, one square of light burned above a living room where a box fan hummed though it was December. The couch cushions were propped as if bracing for impact. On the stove, a skillet sat clean and still damp around the rim. The master bed was made on one side and hollow on the other. A purse waited by the door like a patient dog. The phone on the counter did not move. By sunrise on Monday, the daycare had called. Her desk chair sat empty, and the house felt over-tidy in a way that made officers lower their voices the moment they stepped inside. Sunday had looked ordinary. Church, coats too big for small arms, toddlers tumbling toward the entry while adults tried to keep the cold out. Susan sang to settle the boys and laughed when they weren't settled. Friends watched her lean into conversation, the kind of woman who turned plans into lists and lists into action. She was careful because she had to be. Money was tight. Control was tighter. She wrote down passwords, filed receipts, and tucked a just-in-case letter where paper could say what she could not safely say aloud. If anything happens to me, do not call it an accident. She loved the small, sturdy rhythm of home, bathwater running, cartoons too loud, a spoon against a pan, the soft click of a lamp at bedtime. She meant to have another Monday of that. Just after midnight, the garage door moaned. Josh Powell buckled two sleepy boys into a minivan and steered into a blizzard for what he would later call a camping trip. The air was knife cold. Ice blew sideways. The desert west of the city dissolved into white and wind. "S'mores," he said. "Stars," he said. Two preschoolers in footy pajamas nodded off while mile markers vanished. Back home, a box fan kept pushing air through a scrubbed room that smelled faintly metallic, the kind of wrong note that makes a detective pinch the bridge of his nose without knowing why yet. When officers arrived later that morning, they found makeup open on the vanity as if a routine had been interrupted mid-stroke, a couple of small dark dots on the tile near the couch, no coat missing, no wet boots by the door, no note. Keys, phone, purse, everything a person carries, had not gone anywhere. Josh returned that afternoon with a story smoothed thin around the edges. He talked about a sputtering fire in the West Desert and forgetting Monday existed. He showed no frostbite. He did not explain why he'd taken his work phone but left his wife's behind. He shrugged at the storm and the hour and the simplest question of all. Where is she? Detectives marked the contradictions, asked him to come down, watched him talk without saying anything that mattered. He wanted his van back. He asked when he could leave. He watched their eyes and gave them a neat chronology that hurt to listen to. Midnight s'mores. A father and two boys alone under hostile sky. A mother who simply vanished from a house that looked staged to pretend she hadn't. Searchers fanned out across the Great Salt Lake Desert, its flats broken by black sage and old shafts that dropped straight into the earth like unplugged wells. Volunteers stomped boot prints into crust until their legs burned. Dogs circled, sat, moved on. Helicopters threw long noon shadows. As thaw set in, snow became mud and then salt dust. In the command post, a map turned into a web. Pins, yarn, circles, times. In a quiet room with toys and a recorder on the table, the boys said small, careful sentences, the way children reach for sense. "Mommy's in the mine," one offered, and adults stared at the carpet because there was nowhere else to put their eyes. Meanwhile, hard drives were copied, browser histories sifted, carpet fibers bagged, receipts scanned, a life insurance policy read twice and then again. No single piece sang by itself. Together they hummed the wrong note. The case bent sideways in Washington, where Josh's father lived among hoarded junk and journals that soured the air. Every supervised visit for the boys meant motions and hearings and new stacks of paper. Susan's parents drove and waited on courthouse benches, hungry for routine. Bedtime hugs, school pickups, a calendar that did not depend on strangers in black robes. Reporters learned to ask soft questions and to give her family long room for silence. Sometimes the answers came. Sometimes only tears did. The Powell house in Utah went on the market. The missing posters curled in the wind until volunteers replaced them with fresh tape. Detectives aged in fluorescent light. Younger detectives took their desks and inherited a board of photographs they now felt responsible to. Then came a visit, day in February 2012. Washington sky, pale and undecided. A social worker parked in front of a small rental in Graham. 2 boys hopped out with drawings to show their dad. The door opened. It shut. The lock slid. She knocked. She called their names. She smelled gasoline. The flash rolled through the windows so fast, she said it before she could think it. It blew up. On the phone with 911, her voice broke into pieces while the operator asked questions no one should ever have to answer. Inside, Josh Powell swung an axe and struck a match, ending the only part of the story that still had voices. In the days after, the case grew heavier than any file could hold. 2 small caskets, 2 eulogies no human throat should be asked to deliver, an empty space at the microphone where a mother should have stood to speak for them. The desert still kept its silence. Tips arrived like weather, odd colors on satellite images, fabric scraps that might have been nothing, coordinates for a shaft no one had searched yet. Crews hiked into gullies with ropes and cameras, peered into holes that exhaled air colder than night. A pilot banked low over a barren stretch and swore he'd seen a shape that didn't belong. Each new clue fell down an invisible well and took too long to hit anything. Detectives woke at 3 a.m. with a route lit up on a mental map, drove it, felt the small hope cool before sunrise. Yet the work continued because work is what love looks like when answers refuse to arrive. The truest portrait of Susan lived in small, durable things. A recipe she annotated in the margin, a shopping list in her looping hand, a Christmas card with all 4 names, a voicemail a friend kept long after the phone model went obsolete. Practical and warm, she kept a home whose sounds you could almost hear, the zipper drawn up over a chin, the lunchbox snap, the click of car seats, a kiss on a temple, a door closing softly against winter. That rhythm is the ghost at the center of this case. It is what the fan in that living room tried to drown and could not. What remains for the living is also small and durable. Walk one more canyon, call in one more tip, say her name so it does not thin into rumor. And there is the letter. She wrote it when fear finally learned her schedule. She tucked it where paper remembers what people sometimes cannot bring themselves to say. It warned plainly and asked softly, "If the worst happens, do not call it an accident. Please keep looking. Please do not let my name become only a question. That request is the work now." Some searches are loud and wide and full of volunteers. Some happen quietly when a hiker chooses a different trail, or a prospector lowers a camera into a shaft and watches dust glitter in a cone of light, holding his breath as if he might hear an answer. The file is still open, because love is. Investigators delay retirement just long enough to chase one more tip. Strangers learn her story and choose a canyon over a couch on a Saturday. Friends refuse to let her be only a photograph. There is a place in the desert where the wind sounds like a faraway fan. When it rises, people who knew her stop and listen. They remember the little house and its single square of light. They remember how quickly ordinary can vanish. They say her name, and they promise, again and again, to keep doing the small, faithful things that refuse to let her fall through the world unnoticed. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. Subscribe for more true stories, if you dare.